Welcome to Alignment Adventures, a podcast where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling, aligning, and present life. I'm your host, Lindsay Tanner, and I'm so dang glad you're here. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Adventures. I'm so excited and so grateful that you are here today. And to round out our series of interviews, I hope you guys have been enjoying these interviews as much as I have enjoyed being in them and conducting them and talking to these people. It's been so fun and so enlightening and so aligning for me. But I have one more for you, and it is a very special guest, someone very near and dear to my heart, and that is my father, Frank Melchiorri. So this has been in the works for quite a while. I've been wanting him to come on the podcast because, as you'll see in this episode, I think I get a lot of my qualities in diving into these topics from him. He is also a seeker like me. We talk about that. We just really love pondering these questions like, why are we here? What makes us happy? What makes us fulfilled? So those are some of the topics we cover, along with so many other things. He mentions a ton of different philosophers and spiritual teachers and authors that have really influenced him. He's really read like a ton of books, so I find that very insightful. All the people that he references, and if you're ever interested, you can go and check out those people as well. He talks about meditation and how that has influenced his life so much. I love that because obviously I talk about meditation a lot, and I upload meditations to my YouTube channel, which there's really no wrong way to meditate, but I love his insights on that practice. That is just a tool to get to know yourself, to figure out what you want out of this life, which is something we talk about a lot on this podcast as well. Like, what makes us happy? What makes this life meaningful? We kind of dive into some more woo topics, as I call them, or spiritual topics, like what is time? Is it linear? Quantum physics. We also talk about making the most of each stage of life. And I love the questions that he answers at the end. So with all that being said, I'm going to get straight into this conversation. But before we get into it, the day that this is released, I think it's October 17th, his birthday is the next day. So go and wish him a happy birthday. I think he's on Facebook. I don't think he's on Instagram, Frank Melchiorri. I will link it in the show notes. And let's go ahead and get into this conversation. Dad, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know people are going to be very interested in what you have to say today.
Wow, I'm actually on your podcast. This is so cool.
Yeah, we've talked about this for a while.
I know. I just do it,
Yeah.
and thank you for inviting me on, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure because you know how proud I am of you. So, wow, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, I always appreciate how much you and Mom support me always, so.
Well,
very lucky.
your mother's a beautiful person, and no, I just I'm so proud of you. We could make a whole podcast on how proud I am of you. So.
Well, we're here to talk about you, so let's shift the focus.
Wow. Okay. My favorite subject.
So we'll start with my usual one. Everyone knows, and I love to hear how people answer this. And by the way, you may hear Arlo in the background, and that's just the reality of the situation. But who is Frank Melchiorri?
Who is Frank Melchiorri? Well, we'll refer to him as the I. At the core of it all, Frank Melchiorri realizes that he's been a very, very lucky person. You've heard me say this before. The most important decision in your life is who you're born to. You have absolutely no control. That you're born or who you're born to, you have no control over it all. And I hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
My parents, Frank and Joanne, your grandparents,
Yeah.
were lovely people that were deeply in love that over the lifetime probably became one. And
Yeah.
they along gave me my younger brother, just created a beautiful atmosphere and a beautiful family. I mean, we had trials and tribulations. I mean,
Yeah.
It wasn't, some 50s sitcom or something like that. But really, as I look back on it now, it truly was kind of a golden age.
Yeah.
For me and my younger brother, because and we have talked about it in depth, what a wonderful childhood we had, and how blessed we are, and so I feel very lucky. And to go on with that, I met your mother, and then we
Yeah.
had both you and your sister, and in turn you have given us some beautiful grandchildren. Arlo, who you talked about, and your sister has given us Chloe, Hudson, Ashton, and Mr. Bennett.
Mr. B.
And I think they truly give me and your mother a meaning of life, a meaning to life and stuff like that. I mean, they make our life more full. That's what I'm getting at. So you asked me who I am.
Yeah.
At the core, at this age, I have begun to realize how incredibly lucky. And I think whatever entity is in the universe, fate, or whatever it is, I am so grateful to you. You have been so kind to me, and just keep it up.
I love that answer.
Yeah. But it's the truth. It's the truth. That's that at the core. I have realized I've been a very lucky person, and I've had some incredible things happen in my life, and the mistakes I have made in life have not cost me dearly and stuff like, because I have made mistakes and stuff like that. But in the gist of the whole game, it's all worked out pretty well for Frank.
Yeah.
So that makes me happy.
Well, that's such a hard question to answer. That's why I love asking it. And there's so many ways you can define it. And here you are defining it by the people you're surrounded by and the fact that you're so blessed and lucky. So I think that's a really sweet answer, and I love that.
No, and it is. And along with that, too, a part of me is still a searcher. I remember in college reading by Somerset Maugham, The Razor's Edge, and then the character Larry Darrell, who was also a pilot. And I have not suffered any of the things he went through, but I always admired him. He searched for enlightenment. And of course he had the journey, and watch the movie with Tyrone Power, and we don't have to go through all that. But he searched for enlightenment, and I always identified with that character, this search for enlightenment. And when I was younger, I was infatuated with Hess and the Steppenwolf and the Siddhartha, and I had some teachers that were in college that were from India and Buddhism and stuff like that. And I was raised a Roman Catholic and stuff like that. And at church today was a very good sermon right there. But no, I'm really interested in spiritual, Judeo-Christian religious things and stuff like that. And I still, I'm retired now, and I have the opportunity to take the time and explore a lot of these things and stuff like that. For what did whoever the Greek was, philosopher, said, a life not examined is not a life well lived, or so is not worth living, or something like that. I'm kind of butchering that. Yeah. And going along with that, what I admire most about you and your peers is you actually hearken back to the early Greeks. The search, or Buddhists or whatever, you have this search for enlightenment and to live a better life. And then through that search for enlightenment and a better life, you really are adhering to this, your alignment. Yeah. And that is, I think that's wonderful. Yeah. Because that's what the Greeks really in the beginning were talking about. Yeah. Is to live a better life. Let's make this a better life. And isn't that the essence of all thought sometimes, is let's make a better life, not only for ourselves and for our families, but for the whole rest of civilization. If everybody cleaned their house, it'd be a beautiful city.
For sure. Very well said. And I think that's definitely something I get from you, is the searcher aspect. What are we looking for? I don't know, but we're looking for something, and I think you said that well, for a better life for ourselves and for everyone else.
Well, what is the definition of philosophy? Is you ask the question, why? Why did this happen? Mm-hmm. When you ask the question, what is the meaning of this? That is existentialism. Yeah. Why are we here? Why are we here? And as we talked about, the great philosophers from Seneca, there's no easy way from the earth to the stars. I always find this one you'll find really interesting. Marcus Aurelius said, and he was a Stoic, like Seneca. They were Romans, and they adhered to Greek philosophy. You have the power over your mind, not the outside events. Mm-hmm. Realize this, and you will find strength. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of embodies a lot of what you and your peers talk about today. That is so, it's timeless. Yeah.
Focus on what you can control.
Yeah, that's the timeless question. And I think the Greeks, more than some of the later philosophers, and I'm no expert, I don't have a philosophy degree or anything.
But you've read a lot about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was a biochemistry major like you, and then I was a pilot, commercial pilot and a military pilot. But the bottom line is, I think later philosophers try to analyze so much things, but the Greeks really got at the heart, and along with the Romans, and along with much Eastern philosophy, the Buddhists maybe, living a better life. The Buddha talked about the middle ground.
Yeah.
Moderation and stuff like that. It's all the same. It's
Yeah.
all the same answer. It's just different ways of asking the question, is it not?
Yeah, totally.
But that's what makes me so proud of you, is that you have, well, you're Larry Darrell, not me.
I don't know exactly who that
No,
is.
it's Somerset Mom, and it was
Yeah.
a great movie. Tyrone Power was in it and stuff like that. I remember watching that as a kid. But in search for enlightenment, and I think this is the nature of our humanity,
Yeah.
is our search for our meaning in life.
Well, you kind of already answered it. You know, I always ask, what does living and aligning life mean to you? Is there anything you want to like expand on that? I mean, you kind of already said, you know, why are we here? What makes us happy? But what does living and aligning life mean to you?
Well, you go back, was it Eckhart, Helen?
Mm-hmm. Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle. I think that is one of the basic things that you have to realize in your life. You have to live in the now.
Mm-hmm.
The future, you cannot always be looking forward to what's coming next. The Greeks had the one guy roll the rock up the hill all the time, and it comes back down.
Yeah.
But what he had to learn to do is he had to learn to appreciate the grass and the flowers as he rolled the rock up the hill, because it falls down, and he's going to do it the next day. We have to learn to live in the now and enjoy ourselves as best we can. And it's not easy, as many of your podcasts have come out and said. You know, this is an ongoing. It's actually a tool. It's like you're exercising your emotions. You're exercising your brain. You have to train yourself, basically, I think, to live in the now.
Yeah.
And to appreciate the now, and appreciate every second. Because the time we have on Earth, our time is our most precious thing. As you get older, you too really realize that. And
do you feel like you've gotten better at living in the now
yes,
as you've gotten older?
yes, because it's just in your biological clock. You realize there is not forever and stuff like that. You know, you lose friends, you lose parents and stuff like that, and and your grandparents and stuff, and it's. You know, it's the circle of life.
Totally.
But no, I feel very fortunate.
We are. We're very blessed.
Yes, we are.
But you mentioned a lot of people, like a lot of philosophers, a lot of spiritual teachers. Do you feel like they're all kind of talking about the same thing? You kind of mentioned that already.
You know, I read that book. Whoever, and now this is pop culture, whoever, you know, George Lucas talked about the Force. And he read somebody that I can't think of their name right now. And his whole book, his whole thesis and stuff like that is that there is, through running as a thread through all religions, all philosophy and stuff like that, is that there's this core. We look for a force, something. We look for something. And what is that something? Is that something that guide us? I remember reading Herman Hesse in college, and he embraced Eastern mysticism a couple of generations before, you know, my generation with the Beatles and all that movement too. And I read his book, the Siddhartha, deeply affected me. And it was a pseudo autobiographical thing of the Buddha. Yeah, I think there's a thread on all this, don't you?
Totally. I think it's all talking about the same thing, and that's why it's important to kind of question maybe your beliefs and what you've been conditioned to believe, because they all connect and interweave. And like we said, we were in Mass today, so I'm kind of here, there, and everywhere, dabbling and all. But I do find it interesting, like you said, to ask those big questions, which religion and philosophy try to answer. Like, why are we here? What's the purpose of it all?
Well, that's a very good point you brought out. And tolerance and open-mindedness in this world, sometimes we lack. And we must tolerate other people's opinions. We must tolerate other things. The great philosopher Hume said, it's the height of human folly to discuss politics or religion with your friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is true. But at the same time, too, you must ask other people what they think.
Yeah.
And I know you like to travel, and you know, I've traveled some, both with the military and all that. As you see how other people live, you see both that they're different and we're all the same.
Yeah.
We all love our children, we love our families, and we want to be safe.
Yeah.
And on the thread that you're talking about there, you know, you read all the philosophies, you know. I spent a lot of time at 40,000 feet, so I've read a few things. To and from Chicago, I listened to a lot of things on YouTube, philosophy, religion, and stuff like that. But I think there's something else in the question, too, and I heard this in a song. There's a song called Wave on Wave, and I was dancing to it one night, and in truth, what we all want in the end is a happy ending. And that's what people want. It's just kind of a happy ending. They want to feel like their life has some sort of meaning. You know, I worked for Southwest Airprint, and Herb Kelleher, the late great Herb Kelleher, when I was a new hire, we had breakfast with him, and he drew cigarettes. Between cigarettes, he was talking to us, and he said, "Guys, I want to tell you something. Whenever you go out, if you go through a grocery line, whatever you do, acknowledge the person that's across from you, because people just want to be acknowledged in life."
For sure.
This is a great wheel we live under, the great bureaucracy. It makes our life better. The whole great machine has made our life better. Herman Hesse addressed it again in his book, Under the Wheel. But life can crush you sometimes. And what we need as human beings is we need to reconnect with each other to the point that we acknowledge our existence, whether you're going through a checkout line or anything. And I actually do practice that. You
are really good at that, making people feel acknowledged.
No, you have to acknowledge their existence. Who said it? People, maybe Voltaire, people live lives of quiet desperation.
Yeah.
And that is true. I mean, I lived it at one time. I mean, not that I've ever suffered any true indignities, but I think especially when you're young, and I think you address this to your audience, you can get lost in the great machine of life.
Yeah.
Come back to who you are. Ad astra, reach for the stars. It's actually Latin for inter astra, ad astra. We must reach for the stars.
Yeah.
I'm butchering that Latin. I'm sorry about
Okay.
that. But that's the truth. Ad astra, we must reach for the stars. But in doing so, we must also find ourselves, or try to find ourselves. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it makes sense to me. And going back to what you said about everyone just wants to be happy, like why, or what do you think truly makes us happy? And do you think most people are chasing something that could falsely make them happy?
Yeah. You know, our sense of materialism, and I've been guilty of this too. Material things, as you've stated in your podcast, is a fleeting thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. You must find a deeper meaning in life. Nietzsche said, he talked about the Übermensch, and it's not translated as the Superman, it's the overperson. And I'm not a big fan of everything Nietzsche says, but what we must do as humans is rise above our everyday life and try to find meaning. We must find meaning in life. And meaning is not through materialism, it's through relationships, I think.
Yeah.
We are just looking for other people to give us that happy ending.
Yeah.
And I think the only way is through relationships.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah. We all just want to be loved and to be loved, right?
Listening to many of your podcasts is things I had already realized, but reaffirms what you have stated so many times, and it has made me reevaluate my life and start thinking in a different way, to the point that it's hard to describe. It's like listening to a song. You can describe it, but until you listen to it, you really don't understand it. You must reach inside yourself and try to find meaning.
Yeah. I think that maybe sometimes people that are truly unhappy or unfulfilled, they just don't have meaning of any kind. They're kind of stuck in the mundane, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Not being a name dropper here, but Ben Franklin said, reading makes a person more intelligent, well-read. Meditation makes a person profound. And I think, and I like you've given people the tools, and I've used some of your tools you've talked about.
Yeah.
I'm big on meditation.
Yeah.
I do it every morning. About 3-4 years ago, I did it way back in the 70s. I learned it, and I used it and stuff like that. And through the years, I've used it. But for about 4 years, I've really been hitting the meditation, and I got the time now and stuff. And it's affected my life. I appreciate life more. I mean, and nothing profound has happened to me. I haven't had some great epiphany or anything like that. I just have learned now to really appreciate life.
Yeah.
Appreciate the little things.
Totally.
You know, just being here with you, talking this, being with your son this morning,
Yeah.
and your husband and stuff like that, being with your sister and her children. I've learned to appreciate that more, because we do rush through life. It's a sad.
It's always what's next.
Yeah,
what's next.
it's it. Well, again, I think Michelangelo said we rush through life, and once we get to the next thing, we rush to the next thing. But that is kind of the nature of people.
Yeah.
That is the nature of people.
The
We do
human
rush.
condition.
And that's what I think is your biggest, that's what I'm so proud of you and your peers. You're addressing an age-old question of this meaning. We must find meaning, and meaning is not always found through materialistic or even through success.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes great meaning is just found in recognizing ourselves.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Totally.
Okay.
And I think you hit something too, and this is something I try to focus on, because sometimes I have the mentality of, oh, if I just read one more book or listen to one more thing, like I'll have it figured out. Or if I listen to, one more philosopher, like you mentioned so many, I'll figure out the meaning of it all. But I think it's a balance of, educating yourself through the works of others, but also, like you said, going within yourself.
Yeah.
And those are two key parts, not only gathering knowledge, but also exploring the depths within yourself and figuring out who you are.
Scott Fitzgerald ended his book. What was it, The Great Gatsby? Remember when I took you to that movie?
The new one's
But
really good.
read the end of the book, and why. And I forgot the narrator of it, what his name was, but he knew Scott Fitzgerald, and what he admired about him the most, and it was so American, is that he was the total optimist. He looked always at the green light, and for his lost love, and he didn't get her. But tomorrow I'll row the boat a little faster, we'll run a little harder and stuff like that, and eventually I'll catch it. And I think this is a part of human nature. But on the flip side of that, sometimes we must learn to be content. We must learn the joy of just being and stuff like that.
Which is hard.
Oh, it's very hard.
Why is it like that? I guess just our society, right?
Well, and again, this is what I really admire about you and your peers and stuff like that. You guys are truly addressing a problem, and maybe it's just peculiar to this society, is that the abundance we have. We cannot be overindulgent. But I was fortunate to have met my great-grandmother, who was an Italian immigrant. They had nothing.
Yeah. And were they happy?
No, not really. No, and I'm really proud to be my Italian, the product of Italian and Hungarian immigrants and stuff like that. But they came to this country and they worked hard and stuff like that, and they found a dream. Yeah. Well, it's like everything else. Sometimes you find a dream, you've got to learn to find what is the most important part of the dream. What is meaning in your life?
Well, with talking about your great-grandma, I guess my great-great-grandma, right? It makes me think something that I watched talked about how sometimes people maybe are still caught up in that mentality of chasing the American dream, which that may or may not make you happy. Because that was such a common thing for a while, people coming over from Europe or wherever and coming here for a better promise. It's just an interesting thing to think about, because now we live in different times, but people still have that mentality of like, oh, I got to chase this. I've got to work my way to the top, because that's what so many people had to do to create a better life for themselves.
You're going to love this. Every person is a creature of the age in which he lives, and few are able to raise themselves above the ideas of the time. Voltaire. We are all products of our age. My grandfather and my father were products of their age. I am a product of my time. You are a completely different person. You've been influenced, but you are the product of your time, and you're different. Yeah. And that's really nice to see. This is the environment we live in. We have to learn and find the tools that address this problem and use them correctly to be able to rise above the malaise maybe of our society and stuff, I mean, it's not like we're living in the Middle Ages, stuff like that.
Or Game of Thrones
time. Yeah. I mean, women died in childbirth, people died of a toothache and stuff like that. But no, it's not easy to rise above certain things. It takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of introspection, I think.
Totally. I think that's another thing, too, is like people really suffered there for so long, so many thousands of years, like you said, in the Middle Ages. It's almost like our mind looks for suffering.
It's a very good question you brought up. It's only 3 or 4 generations where we've lived
without, like,
we live comfortable life. And this goes on both sides of your families. They were European immigrants. They had much rougher lives than we did. Yeah. I mean, just the daily routine of life. Mm-hmm. And then all the freedoms you enjoy today, they just did not have. Yeah. They never questioned. They didn't have the luxury of questioning the meaning of life.
Yeah. They're just
the meaning of life was survival.
Yeah.
I mean, we now I mean, I don't get up in the morning where you know, whether I'm gonna find a meal or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, and it allows me the opportunity. Okay, then why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
I have, you know, and now that I'm retired, I can sit and get on a computer and God, I love Wikipedia. You know, I can look up a song that I've listened to all my life and go on song facts, you know, genius lyrics, and I look up those lyrics and stuff. Oh, so that's what that means. I mean, how ridiculous is that? You know, my grandparents never had that luxury. They didn't have the technology, and they didn't have the time or the resources to do that.
Yeah.
And something else too that begs to, you are addressing problems that previous generations may not have had, and that's just a good thing. I mean, you recognize, to solve a problem, you must recognize it, right?
Yeah. Awareness always.
Awareness. You know, awareness leads to enlightenment, and enlightenment leads to living an aligned life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how I interpret your messages. That's what your message is to me.
Yeah.
Is we must search for something, and through that searching, we find the alignment that we're seeking.
Yeah, totally. Well, I have some interesting questions for you.
Shoot.
Are you ready?
Fire away.
Okay. What is one thing you believe now that you didn't necessarily believe earlier in your life?
What I believe now is, and I've been taught this from a very early age, that what you give in life, you will get back.
Mm.
Did I really believe it? No. But as I get older now, I realize I am the beneficiary of so many great things that I now, as an older person, and I want to evolve into have that elder mentality, that I must help not only my family and the people around me, but try to be a better human being. Whether it's bringing food to the food bank, volunteering in something. What I found out is the commonality we all have.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the Middle East, when I was in Kuwait, I seen thousands of people gather with their children, like an enormous block party, and it really hit me that these people deeply love their children, and that may save us all.
Yeah.
We love our children.
Yeah.
So we hopefully won't slaughter ourselves, which I don't think we'll do.
Yeah.
But the commonality of man,
Mm-hmm.
the commonality of man, and the kindness that people can have towards each other. But everybody has to work at being kind. I mean, you know, and you have to show kindness to your fellow man.
Do you think people are innately kind, are good?
I like to think so. I like to think that we're not.
Me too.
I like to think that we are good, but circumstances can lead us to do things that are not so good.
Agreed.
And
Experiences, traumas.
the old heart of darkness.
For sure.
But no, I think basically, man, I think if we all find common ground, we'll all get along.
Yeah, I think that's something that could help us all, finding the connectivity, because
Yeah.
we're all connected. It's just a matter of feeling it or realizing it.
Well, when I look at, you know, when I see my grandchildren, or I remember posting on Facebook the day you had Arlo, and it was Nicole's birthday, and it was Moon Day, and I just realized, hey, peace out, everybody. It's all going to work out. You know, I mean, what the stars aligned that day.
Yeah.
You had Arlo. We were celebrating Nicole's birthday, and we landed on the moon. And I mean, that was a big event in my younger life. I remember. So that again shows how old I am. Watching them land on the moon, and I just thought, man, peace out, baby. This is so awesome. And yeah, I think the awareness that there's an essential goodness in people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you must recognize. Try to bring it out in yourself and other people.
For sure. And the synchronicities, they're there when we see them. But I love that Arlo's birthday is the day that we landed on the moon.
I know, isn't that cool?
I love the moon.
It is. A moon for the misbegotten. As your great grandma said, La Luna, da Luna.
Yeah.
Da Luna brings the love.
I love it. I love it. Well, my next question kind of goes along with this, but it's a little bit different. If you had a time machine and can go back to, let's say, 20-year-old Frank, 30-year-old Frank, what would you tell him?
That's a very good question. Number one, I don't really want a time machine. I used to think, I go back to the time and I tell my younger self, hey, do this in college, get in pilot training earlier, you'll do this and if I change one thing in the past, I change the future.
Yeah.
And there is nothing I want to do to change this future. This future is perfect for me. And I realize something. But if that would happen and the world would evolve just like it's supposed to, if I met my 20-year-old self, I'd say, relax. But, and that might be a mistake too, because that 20-year-old person, you know, if he would have relaxed, maybe he wouldn't have got some of the things done that he got done. Yeah. I mean, you know, you kind of preach this thing that things are because they are, you know. Yeah. And that's the person I was probably supposed to be when I was 20 years old. For sure. That mildly neurotic, you know, let's get this done. I want to win, you know. And all. I'm not that person today, and I don't really miss him. I really don't. But if I wouldn't have been that person, I might not be as lucky as I am today. And you might not either.
Very, very true.
No, but that. You're asking a question. What would I tell myself? It'd be interesting to observe myself, like we watched those movies last night. It was funny. I'm seeing my dad, we're the same age in those films 30 years ago, and I'm looking at myself 30 some years ago. That's my completely black hair.
Yeah, in our home videos that we watch.
Yeah, but no, that's it. Nothing truly profound. I'm sorry, but no, I do not want to change the past.
No, I think.
And there's things I'm really sorry about. But if we change the past, we change the future. And I love this present right now. That's how I feel. That's why I told you in the beginning, I'm lucky. Yeah. I love the present I live in right now.
Yeah,
and
that's beautiful.
Whoever's up, keep it up, okay?
Well, I think every science fiction movie's taught us that. Like, don't go back and mess with the past if there is a time machine.
And you know, you talk about time, and you address about time.
Yeah, is time an illusion? I mean, that's...
Or is it linear? I mean, you know, what was that one... I remember that when you were little, I was watching Star Trek The Next Generation, and there were beings that did not live in a linear time. They could live in any time along the thing. It's kind of far out, but...
I think that's beyond our mind to comprehend, but a part of me does think that time is not as we perceive it.
Well, one of my favorite, Phil Dick, addressed this in many of his novels. In fact, the alternate realities and stuff like that. I loved his book, Man in the High Castle, and the series and stuff like that. And he even has an incident where one of the characters in it sees the alternate times at the same time. I mean, that's an incredible thought that we're alternate people in a different timeline. That is an incredible thought.
I kind of believe that. Like, there's different versions of us playing out maybe different choices that we could have made. And based on what we are doing right now, this is the timeline we're in. There's infinite timelines, and based on the choices we've made, this is the one we've chosen. And based on our choices, we can kind of hop between them. But it is a very far out thing.
No, it is. And it is actually a theory in physics that those are different. Was it Heisenberg? I don't know. You know, Heisenberg says you never can completely measure anything because once you look at something, it changes the experiment. And what and you cannot completely know an electron. You cannot completely know both its mass and its energy or something like that. Yeah. And it drove Einstein nuts because then you can't find the. We're all looking. Everybody's looking for this theory that explains everything. I don't know if it exists. Yeah. I know, and I don't know if we're ever supposed to find the full enlightenment we talk about. It's the journey to this that is aligning. That's pretty good, isn't it?
That is good.
I always sound like an expert there.
Well, that's something Abraham Hicks, someone I listen to a lot. Well, not someone, they're an entity, I guess. But they always say, yeah, like if you just got to the end of the ride, like what fun would that be? It's as cliche as it is, it really is the journey. And for us, it's aligning to ponder these questions. But for other people, they don't think this deeply. It's just fun for us to think about these things.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you always say. And that's okay.
Okay, my last two questions for you. What is one piece of advice you have just for anyone listening to this? Maybe they're younger than me or just starting out on this journey of finding their alignment, diving into spirituality or philosophy. What is your piece of advice?
All I can give is an example of my life where I've gotten a couple of pieces of information and I ran with them.
Yeah.
and I was a bulldog, and some of it was frustrating. I got some doors slammed in my face. So my nose is flat on one side because all those doors slammed in my face. Piece of advice: follow your dreams, live it. You embody this yourself, and that makes me so proud. If you want to be something, go for it. Unless, I don't know, the circumstances of everybody's life is so different. But if you really want to do something, go for it when you're young. And because one day you will end up 65 years old, and you will look back at your life, and if you can say, hey, I shot hitting about 80% from the field, that's a pretty good 800. That's a pretty good batting average or something. It's a great batting average, in fact.
What you said you had, right?
yeah, quit softball. But if you can do that, if you can look back at your life and go, hey, this kind of all worked out, and that's how I feel. I truly feel that. There's things I would have loved to have done more things. I would have flown some different airplanes. I would have had great musical talent, maybe wrote a couple rock and roll records, or wrote a great novel, or all this. But I feel for my talents, I pushed them as far as I could. So my advice to younger people is follow your dreams. That's such a cliche, but that's all I can say.
Well, I have two things to say that. One, maybe there's another Frank in another timeline that is writing rock and roll music. Something to think about.
It's true. I'm around.
And two, that's something you've always told me, and I feel like I've gotten from you, is to be a doer. I remember you telling me that maybe in college or something. Be a doer.
Seize the moment. Carpe per diem. And maybe seize the day, seize the moment.
Which it is cliche, but how many people do talk about the things they want to do and they don't go and do it? And I'm guilty of that still sometimes, just because I have so many things I do want to do. But just pick something and go after it. I think that's a big part of what I've said from episode 1 is just do the things you love. Stop complaining about the things you don't want and focus on the things you do want.
If you tried something, even if you failed, at least you had the satisfaction that, I tried this. I attempted this. Because, there's things I failed in my life, and I can realize, okay, my talents were only so much, we're only given so many talents in life. I can't sing a song, I can't carry a tune to save my life. Tried to be a musician when I was younger, and I just don't have it. Was really lucky. I had a couple of eptness in the careers I picked. That's the only thing I can say to a younger person, and is just go for it. And I hate to sound like some wise and old fool or wise and old man, but that's it. Go for it.
No, I think that's great. That's perfect.
Kind of like something out of a Rocky movie. Hey, go for it.
Yeah, just do it.
Such a boomer.
My last question for you, and this is a new one I've added just because I think it's fun and I'm curious, but what is your most aligning activity in this space and time? What is something you love to do that is bringing you the highest joy?
Enjoy meditating. Meditation became a big part of my life. I know. Really, it's a great way to start the day. I feel like I'm in the right space. Even yesterday when I got here, my clock's off for a couple hours. I didn't get a really great meditation in the morning, and in the afternoon I finished it up, and the rest of the day was wonderful. What else do I find aligning? Enjoying physical activities that I enjoy. The gym. Yeah. Tried a little pickleball, do a little line dancing and stuff like that. Those things bring me great joy. And plus, I'm a much more social person now that I'm retired. My life was pretty routine, and I loved it. It wasn't a hardship, but no, I've connected with more people now that I've retired. I actually know my neighbors' names, in both Springfield and Fort Myers. But the meditation, I can't. Yeah. And I want to thank you, and there's other people that led me to this and stuff like that. But the meditation really gives you a better understanding, I think, of life. If we all meditated, it would probably be a greater planet. And this is not an advertisement. I'm not, but I think, and I took a meditation class way back in the 70s, and it was eye-opening.
Well, I think you're a good example of maybe sometimes people enter different stages of their life, and they think, I don't know, like this is it, whatever. But you enter each stage and you make the most of it.
Well, I'm adapting to a new age. I mean, I'm older, and this is a different age. This is not the age And me and my friends talk about it. Oh, remember back then, way back and then. And I don't want to really be that guy that lives in the past.
Yeah.
I have to adapt. I don't want to be a dinosaur in the age of mammals. I have to adapt to this new world. And I hope I'm in it for quite a while longer. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to, and we could do a whole nother podcast on
For sure.
that. But that's it. And there's nothing, I'm not the brightest guy in the world and stuff like that. So if I can do it, anybody can. That's how I've always felt.
Well, I'd say you're living your best life now.
I love that saying. I think that so often. When I'm doing an activity that I love, I go, you know what? I'm living my best life. Lindsay'd be so proud of me. And I want to, and to finish up with this, I'm proud of you and your sister. You're incredible human beings. You're different, but you're incredible. You could bring me great joy. What you and everybody does with these alignment movements and stuff. You bring me great joy, and it brings me great joy that you do this, because I think you guys are really doing something incredible. Is just to bring happiness to people in their everyday lives is a bigger task than you can imagine.
For sure.
Being happy takes work, and you can't always be happy.
No.
It's an erythral thing.
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I mean, some days when I meditate, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just so happy. And then, you go on with the rest of life, and you go through a checkout line, or somebody cuts you off or something like that, or it's hot outside. Oh my God, it's hot or sort of.
Yeah.
But you try to take that goodness with you and say, okay, let's go for it. Let's make this day the best day we can, and
I think that's a great way.
Does that make any sense?
Totally. And you said that we don't choose our parents. I believe we did choose our parents, and I'm very grateful and happy that I chose you and Mom.
Well, you always be grateful for your mom, because she's anyway, we talked about this. No, your mother's an incredible person, and I think it brings us both great joy that you and your sister lead happy lives, or lead fulfilling lives, or whatever. But me and your mother are so proud of you and stuff like that, and it's and boy, if I chose my parents, I'm a lot smarter than I ever thought. Because they were two of the greatest people. My parents grew to be one. Yeah. In the 60 years they were married, and they know each other a little longer than that. I don't know how long they dated for, but my dad was a World War II vet, and my mom was a mid-20th century person. But they grew into one person, and you can relate to this. They, growing up, they were always there and stuff. They grew into one person. They really were one. And we seen that again last night when we looked at the home movies. Yeah. How they did everything together, and how much, they were just always hands-on grandparents, just always. Yeah. And I'm trying to be that. I'm trying to emulate them. I'm trying to be that. Not be too overbearing or anything, but.
I think a part of us, we do become our parents, but we're also uniquely us, and it's beautiful.
Well, we're all evolving. I think that's the biggest thing you realize is, and if you don't evolve, change, whatever you want to call it, then you're static. And this jam isn't for everybody, Maybe the people that don't question everything and don't realize that, maybe they're happier than all of us. They're just, we're the rats running in the maze and stuff like that. But enjoy the run. Like the guy rolling that rock up the hill. You got to learn to enjoy rolling that rock up the hill and appreciate the flowers and smell the birds singing and stuff like that. And but.
It's the little things.
So I hope I've answered some of your questions.
No, I think you've given people a lot to consider. And like I said, I think you're a good inspiration of living your best life in any time and space at any age.
You talked about going back and talking to your 20-year-old self. Yeah. If I went back and talked to my 20-year-old self and said, you're going to have a daughter. She's going to make podcasts. One of these days you're going to be a guest on her podcast. He would have looked at me and gone, yeah, right. Yet here I am. Yeah. I am a guest on your podcast. That blows my mind. That really is. It's, here we.
Well, thanks for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. I mean, like you said, you've done a lot of the work. You've read so many books. You've lived a lot of experiences. So thanks for sharing.
I get paid for this, don't I? No,
we'll see about that. Paid in coffee, maybe?
Yeah, you can edit that out. No, thanks for having me. It's bonding experience we had here.
Yeah.
Me and you
For sure.
sitting here just shooting the breeze over this and stuff. Okay.
It was really fun. So you'll have to come back on.
I promise.
Sounds good.
All right. It's a
Thanks,
date.
Dad.
See ya. Love ya.
Love you. Dad, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed having that conversation. That's kind of like a peek into what we talk about sometimes, like in the car, or just, when we're having deep conversations like that. It's kind of a glimpse into that. But I love you and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I have a feeling he'll be back on. And I'm trying to get my mom on as well. So if you'd be interested in that, let me know. But if you want to connect with Frank, and again, wish him a happy birthday because his birthday is tomorrow. If you're listening to this the day that it was released, go ahead and find him. I think he's just Frank Melchiorri on Facebook, which I will link that in the show notes. Sometimes that is a hard last name to spell. Please share any takeaways you have with me over on Instagram or on Facebook. On Facebook, I'm just Lindsay Tanner. On Instagram, my handle is the same as always, Lindsay with an A, M Tanner. Please share this episode with anyone that you think would like to hear this message. If you are new here, please subscribe. We have new episodes every Monday. Sometimes they're interviews, sometimes they're solo episodes. It really depends, but we're always trying to dive into and discover what it means to live an aligning life. If you haven't already, go and check out my YouTube channel as well. I've been uploading some fun videos there, like what I'm reading this fall that just felt really aligning and fun to share with you all. And of course, I have my celestial yoga flows that I've been uploading recently as well. And lastly, if you haven't, I haven't mentioned this in a while, remember that I have that free resource. It's 30 days of alignment journal prompts. I feel like journaling along with meditation is such a powerful practice. So go and grab that. If you don't know where to start, you can just do a prompt a day and see what comes up. There's a whole intro and instructions to it. Again, there's not really a wrong way to do it, but this is just something to help you get started. And it's a completely free resource for you. So I will link that in the show notes. And of course, I'm sending you all so much love, all the high vibes. I'm so grateful that you are here, and I will see you next week on Alignment Adventures.